Hey, it's Rob Foglia and Jessica Klein with Foglia Properties at Keller Williams Realty here in Nashville. And Jessica and I actually attended a virtual conference this week, Keller Williams Mega Camp. And so we wanted to come to you with basically a few statistics that really jumped out to us about the market update that they provided for us in 2021 and what that might look like going forward. Thought it's a great way to close out the month of August here before we have our new statistics next week, I should say. Jessica, you ready to jump in and get started?
Yeah, there's some really interesting information here and things that we don't normally talk about. So I'm really, really excited to have this conversation. And where should we start? Which of these statistics?
Well, let's start right here. And again, these numbers right here, as you just saw from this slide that I skimmed past, this is for the entire US, the real estate industry. So if you're seeing something and you're like average home price or anything along those lines, like I said, not just for Nashville. So please keep that in mind. If you want to know those statistics, reach out to us, tune in next week to our live, and we'll go over some statistics as well. But let's start right here. And that's with the annual home price average. And they've got an estimated number in here for 2021 as well. And what really jumped out to me, and Jessica, I don't know if you remember hearing this from Gary Keller and Jay Papasan, the two who normally go through all these statistics at these conferences that we go to. But they used to talk about this area where my mouse is around 26, basically from 2011 where it started or bottomed out to where it started to climb, really up until the last year or two. They used to say that, as you can see on the screen, the long-term average for home appreciation is 4%. And they used to say, like, we're never going to see that back, come back. Like it's still 4%, but it was like we lost a little bit of a gap here, as you can see where the line was and how it was not hitting those numbers. And now this year it's crushing that, and it's gone above 4%. The biggest thing, the reason I wanted to, aside from that, basically, and how it came back, aside from that, the reason I wanted to showcase this number to everybody is that, yes, prices are high, and especially if you look at how they've been over the last few years, they're higher than they've been, and yet historically they're kind of on trend, and that's what I wanted to share. So all those that are out there, the home buyers that we've talked to this year have been like, I'm going to wait till the market goes down. It's like, guys, that might not happen anytime soon. Like there's nothing here that shows that it is.
Right, and that is such an interesting thing that, yeah, I mean, based on the graph, how it was between, like you said, 2011 and probably 2018, 19, they had been talking about like, oh, we're just going to run parallel to this line and it's just ground that's been lost forever. And like you said, we have totally shot back up to where we should be on that 4% line, which is super, super interesting. In every other video we've talked about like, oh, this is, well, not every other video. Anyway, a lot of people look at the effects of the pandemic and the things that have happened over the past couple of years as negatives and, difficult situations. And this is kind of an interesting place where the market kind of took advantage of this opportunity to get back where it should be. And I know that we don't have it in here, but at the conference, there was a little bit of talk about how unemployment is around 4%, which is really good. But the open job positions, there are tons of them. And so the economists are predicting that salaries will increase, allowing people to afford these more expensive homes. And I think that we have, is it the next one, the affordability graph?
Yeah.
That will go very much into this conversation.
It will. And the biggest thing that I wanted to share here, and you might have things you want to share on it as well, but as you can see, the gap that's on there, and basically the way that these are numbers straight from the US Census Bureau, where it comes to median household income, median home price, and basically how the gap is. And you can see like the way they made it equal in 1975, that's the 100, and then they let the lines run basically, and if it goes up or goes down, etc. And you can see how really up until 15, 20 years ago, those lines were pretty much parallel. Yes, there's a little bit of a gap here in the late 90s, things like that. However, really until the early 2000s, that's when it really started. That gap really is when it was created. It probably this stood out to me the most, and I wanted to share it with our friends and everybody who gets this video. Is I know, Jessica, you and I were around the same age. I think we're in that millennial group. I know I hear a lot of my friends sometimes talk about how, or I see it on Instagram or TikTok, somebody sharing how, oh, well, my parents were able to buy a home and it was so affordable back then. They made $8. Sorry, Siri's talking to me evidently. But they made no money and yet still bought a huge home, and,
right.
And this kind of supports that. And at the same time, I want to say to anybody who's saying that, that does not mean to give up or play the victim. Like, you can buy a home, you can create a great life for yourself, regardless of what this graph says. But I'll stop rambling, Jessica, and turn it over to you.
Yeah, I think you're completely right. I mean, we and many people who we've helped are examples of, you can succeed in this market. It will look different than it did in, 1984. However, like I was saying in the past, on the past slide, the economists are expecting, as a result of many of these graphs and so many other things, that there's a good chance salaries will increase coming up in the near future, and that will bring this blue line up toward the yellow and kind of shrink that down a little bit, make it a little more affordable. And then on top of that, this graph, I mean, I don't know if this is taking into account interest rates, but interest rates are so much lower than they were toward the beginning of this graph, which makes it a lower monthly payment. So interesting topic for sure.
It is an interesting topic, and a lot of times when in the past when they've talked about affordability, they've again, they just being Keller Williams, where where we got these statistics from, that a lot of times they had interest rates in there to talk about how affordable a home is compared to how it used to be. Actually, on this slide, it's not. As you can see, the data is coming straight from median household income and median home price.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's not considering interest rates. So that, I'm glad you said that, because that is something to consider. Because in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, interest rates were higher. In fact, let's go to our next slide, because you'll see, well, it actually only goes back about 9 years. When it comes to mortgage rates and what that looks like. However, so I'll get to that in a second. However, 20, 30 years ago, rates might be 10% or even higher. And I mean, imagine what a $350,000, $500,000 home price would be at a 10% rate. I mean, it'd be unaffordable to a lot of people compared to what it is today at a 3% rate.
Yeah, I mean, people who, I mean, I'm sure everyone's heard the advertisements everywhere, if your rate is anything over 3% or whatever, if you're looking at a half a percentage change, that can make a big difference in someone's payment. So a difference between, 5% and 3% is really, I mean, that's a pretty dramatic change in price for the same house.
Exactly. It absolutely is. So speaking of mortgage rates, though, I wanted to share this with everybody, because this right here are the monthly mortgage rates going back until, as you can see, the beginning of 2012. This is from Freddie Mac, and you can see, I mean, rates kind of bottomed out earlier this year at what, 2.74%, which is phenomenal. We've never seen them that low. And the numbers here they have go up through June, where they were hovering close to 3% again. I know nobody knows what it's going to be like in the future. Nobody knows what's going to be later this year or next year. They predicted, for what it's worth, they could see by the end of 2022. So again, about a year from now, rates being about 1% higher than they are today, and being in the high 3%, if I recall correctly. Now that's speculation. We don't know. They might be lower than they are today. We don't know that. However, you hit the nail right on the head, Jessica. And I'm not to jump back slides, and I'll come right back to this. But what's keeping homes affordable still for people are interest rates. And if rates do go up, say 1%, that affects a buyer's buying power by 10%. Meaning if they were approved for a $500,000 home at 3%, well, now that at 4%, they can really only get a $450,000 home. So it's just supply and demand, and there's going to be less demand at certain prices will go down. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it's important to note, when you're talking about interest rates in your specific situation, a lender is really the only person who can tell you what your rate will be.
So. These are general statistics, again, straight from Freddie Mac. We've got great lenders we can connect you with, and so if you're curious about what that looks like, reach out to us. We'll get you connected with somebody great who can get you taken care of. This stat, I wanted to make sure we included this. I think we have maybe one more after that. So we'll get to our last slide in just a second, but I wanted to include this because we talk about this a lot in our videos and our monthly market updates, and that's months of supply. And again, just a real quick overview. What this is, all this is saying is that across the entire US, if no other home were to ever hit the market, it would take, as you can see here at the end, through June of 2021, it would take 2.6 months for all those homes to sell, and there would be literally 0 homes out there. And so what's considered a balanced market is 6. 6 months of supply, less is a seller's market, more is a buyer's market. And the further you stray from that number, the more extreme it is. Hence what we saw at the end of last year, beginning of this year, 1.9 months of supply. Now, again, this is across the nation. There are counties, there are areas locally, price points locally that are still in this 1 month of supply, and that are still extreme sellers markets. If you're curious about what that looks like, reach out to us. We'll share that with you for your specific, your home, and we'll let you know exactly what you can expect. What else do you have to add on this, Jessica?
I mean, that's pretty much what we're looking at. Essentially, this whole time frame we're looking at is a seller's market, and with so many factors playing into this, especially strange factors recently, like our next slide, which we'll talk about. It's really tough to say how long it's going to take us to get back to a balanced market and then back into a buyer market. So just something that we'll continue to keep an eye on, and it's another very interesting, very telling statistic.
And there were roughly, just so everybody knows, roughly 30 or 40 slides for us to choose from. So I picked like 5 or 6 here to go through. There was one that I didn't talk about here, and that's forbearance. And I wish I had included it now, because you just you open the door to a conversation on that. And the reason I share that is, I've talked to a lot of buyers, a lot of investors over the last 12 months that have said, well, we're going to wait until the market is soft again, until all these homes that are in forbearance, they're foreclosures, and I can get these great deals. And guys, that's all signs show that's not going to happen. And part of the reason for that is, and we could go back and look at all these statistics, but because like what happened a dozen years ago when the bottom fell out, people were underwater on their home, meaning they owed more than it's worth. And if somebody's owned their property for even just 2 years right now, the home's likely worth a good 20, 30%, maybe even more than that, than what they paid. So even if they had a 100% loan, their home is worth, 30% more than that. You see where I'm coming from, Jessica? So they've got this equity. They have the ability to sell it. And so if there was going to be a flood of foreclosures or something like that, that would impact the months of supply. I don't see that happening, though. I mean, maybe I'm wrong on that. And again, it's speculation, but I don't see that happening.
Yeah, and I think you're right. And actually, so do the economists at Keller Williams. And they've even pointed to the simple fact that most mortgage companies just sort of rewrote the terms of the mortgages. They didn't accrue any interest during this forbearance period. They didn't, like, it was just a stall in payments, and most people have been able to, with unemployment being so low, most people have been able to resume their payments pretty easily. So yes, that's the prediction, is that we will not have too many distress sales in the future because of this.
Absolutely. One last slide that we wanted to share, and it's almost crazy to me to look at these numbers, and I've thought this for years, because this is new construction, and these are basically in thousands on the actual numbers. So really we're estimated 1.1 million new homes across the U.S. that are being built this year. And you can see that's the most that we've seen since 2007, since the market crash, back, again, a dozen years or so ago. The thing that surprises me the most about this is that even with the rise in new construction, you can see it's over last year, it's about 10% higher than last year, or at least the estimated number is. That year was a good 10% higher than, 2020 was a good 10% higher than 2019. Despite the rise in new construction inventory that's out there, we're still seeing, and I'll go back to it, I promise, but we're still seeing this. Best mortgage rates. We're still seeing this, and that's months of supply continuously going down and down and down. And so this also is going to affect that months of supply, though, because there are new construction options out there for people, and yet it's there's still slim inventory is what I'm getting at. So
right, yeah, nowhere near as many as we've needed, and this is a case unlike earlier when we were talking about, let's see, I think it's slide number 3 on the left. This is not time that can be really made up for the most part. So if those houses weren't built, they just weren't built. And so it does play into the inventory shortage that we have right now. And it's just been building over the years. Now we have so many buyers that all of these homes that have been built and all of these resales are kind of being snapped up faster than normal. So yes, very, very important slide here.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I mean, there was a lot that we didn't cover today. I mean, when Gary and Jay and they talked about all this stuff, they probably spent a good hour just talking about market statistics. And so again, we just picked the things that we thought were some of the most important statistics to share with y'all. If y'all have any specific questions about what you're going through, it could maybe you applied for forbearance and you're not sure what's next and you want some information on that, reach out to us. If you're wanting to maybe buy your first home, and you see a slide like the affordability slide here, and you're like, man, what can I actually buy? Can I get a home? Reach out to us. That's how we actually get this process started. We promise you that we're very low pressure when it comes to this. We just want to help guide you to what you want. So if you're wanting to get into a home, we'll at least put the plan in place to guide you that direction. But to reach out to us, real simple. If you're seeing this live, comment below. We're happy to answer any questions that you have, or PM us as well. If you're getting this through email, just hit reply and send us that question. We're happy to help, or you can call us 615-591-5665. Jessica, anything to add?
No, just like you said, reach out if you have any questions. We love talking about this, so you will not be bothering us. Please ask us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate y'all checking this out. Before we sign off, anything that's on the live feed, any questions before, was this so we don't ignore anybody?
It did not look like it, although there's a slight delay. So if you do comment in the next couple minutes, we will absolutely reach out to you, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Absolutely. Well, appreciate y'all checking this out. And until next time, we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.